As you know, our class is about theory to practice. So we're going to take the concepts of emotional intelligence and strengths and put those into very specific practices through some field work and actual assignments I'm going to have you do that will span multiple weeks. So what I mean by that, and you're going to see on this week, I've posted first the emotional intelligence fieldwork activity that you're going to do, where you're going to gather data on a person whom you believe demonstrates two of the key concepts of the 15 on the rubric for emotional intelligence. And you can select any two. I've printed the 2x2 matrix again for you that include the 15 competencies related to the work of Bradbury in our Emotional 2.0 book, but also to the work of Daniel Goleman and many others in emotional intelligence. So the fieldwork assignment will be done week 4. So let's start with the emotional intelligence fieldwork. I have a rubric that I've placed up there, as well as 3 sample papers. Again, all 3 and other examples for actually gathering specific data on emotional intelligence is the essence of what this fieldwork assignment is about. It is worth 40 points, and then there's a specific rubric with multiple steps of what you'll be doing. Then you will actually gather the data. I've listed observational data gathering, you can do interview data gathering, and then what you'll do is you'll summarize the data that you've gathered. Again, this will be, you'll see on the samples of how to write that part of the paper. And what this last section is writing developmental actions, behaviors that would allow a person, if for example they're looking to develop empathy, the type of actions that can be taken in order to develop, expand, or further refine your ability to demonstrate empathy as you're working with others in teams or as you're managing people and leading organizations. This last segment of the paper is where I really want you to spend some time focusing on defining those behaviors, because this will be linked to your final development plan, but also my experience in working with managers and executives over the previous two decades of my career, where people often struggled. If I need to develop my listening skills, or I need to develop my ability to demonstrate empathy, what do I need to do? What are the behaviors associated with effective listening? How do people show that they're really listening to others? How do they show empathy and really show that they understand the other person's perspectives? And often both of those behaviors, the emotional intelligence behaviors there, are associated with our ability to paraphrase back what we heard the person saying, reflect the emotions as well as the content of what is being said, really demonstrate clarity that I understand your perspective. And there are many behaviors that are associated with that, including, but not limited to, following up based on what the person said when they've given feedback, to show that you've listened to the feedback, to show that then you're creating some of the behavior changes and doing things differently as a result. And all of those things show empathy and the fact that you've really listened to the situation, to the person, to the feedback that you've received. The next 3 assignments are linked to then the Seligman article on interventions in optimism, and it's really focused on the fact that we all want optimistic leaders to work for. But optimism does not just mean that we accept things at face value and that in a Pollyannish way we believe anything can be done. Optimism means that in setting specific goals, we identify the people who can help us achieve those goals. We express gratitude for those people. We use our strengths to achieve those goals, but we also draw on other people's strengths. And that even though there may be challenges, obstacles, and issues that arise in moving toward those goals, we focus on the good things that are happening and the approaches that we're taking that allow us to continue to sustain momentum. So all of those are related to then the assignments that are due on week 6, week 8, and then of course your final leadership development plan and paper. So let's start with the first assignment, which is due at the end of week 6, which is the gratitude visit. What I'd like you to first start thinking about this week is who have, in whatever context, at work, at school, through volunteer work that you're doing, at home in your relationships or with the community work that you do, who has touched me, who's provided me with feedback or given me opportunities or given me support in a way that they've really helped me develop my leadership talent, my skills, my strengths. If I hadn't worked with them, my development would not have been where it is today. And while you may have said thank you to that person, what I'm going to ask you to do in this assignment, and what you're going to see summarized in the paper on Seligman, spend time writing a gratitude letter to the person whom you identify. And the letter should express things such as what they did at the time to facilitate your growth and nurture your ability to develop your strengths or develop new skills. Then summarize the impact that still their coaching, their support, their advice has on you today in your current leadership role. So as an example, for the person I wrote my gratitude letter to when I taught this course last term, I talked about, it was a manager I worked with 20 years ago, and we haven't seen each other in about the last 8 years, but we've kept up with each other on LinkedIn. And what I did is I reached out to him, I wrote him a letter, and then had a phone call with him because he lives in another state right now in terms of his career path. And we had a telephone call, and I shared with him what he did to expose me to different client situations. And he brought me along to many meetings in which I was able to observe how he handled not only facilitating positive meetings, but also when the clients were resisting, maybe in some cases being very direct and aggressive in their approach. And I saw how he handled that in terms of his approach to handling conflict, to really show that he's listening to the clients, but doing it in a way that didn't demonstrate that he was angry or he was flustered or he was upset. I gave him feedback about how now I still draw on those skills in the work that I'm doing in the classes that I teach. And I shared with him some examples of what I learned from him in some of the specific client meetings and how it still impacts me today, and how I reference him in the examples of the classes that I teach as one of the best mentors that I've ever had. And then I describe specific actions of what I do and the development that I experience. So what I'm going to have you do is write the letter, then actually read the letter or present the letter to the person through, like maybe I did, through a telephone conversation if the person lives far away, or if the person lives locally. I'd like you sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks to actually meet with the person, have lunch, coffee, or just have them over and read the person the letter, describe to them the impact they've made, and then present the person the letter for them to keep. So that's the gratitude visit. The paper that will be due at the end of week 6 is your summary of the experience of writing the letter, expressing your gratitude, and then what you've learned about the importance of gratitude as a leader, as a colleague, as a team member. Because remember, leadership is not about a specific position you hold. It's about the actions that you take in order to make a difference in people's lives, hopefully a sustained difference over the course of development that people have in their careers and in their lives. So you do not need to give me a copy of the gratitude letter. What I'll do is I'll post what needs to be included and a sample gratitude paper another student had written when he took my course last term, so that you can see the general framework of what to describe in the experience. Again, that is not due till the end of week 6, so you have time to think about who you'd like to share your gratitude with, then to write the letter, and then to set up the meeting in order to share the letter. And then finally, what's due for our class is the paper that describes that experience and your willingness and focus on who am I going to do the next gratitude letter with. That'll be what I'll be asking you to do as a summary in the end of your paper that's due on week 6. So that's about gratitude and building our strengths and optimism as a leader, as we learned from the readings that you did on Seligman's article, Interventions in Optimism, and the importance of optimism for high-performing leaders. The next assignment will be due at the end of week 8. Now this is an assignment that you complete individually. I encourage you to begin this week, but again, what you need to have is 14 days, consecutive days, between now and the end of week 8, when the paper is due on 3 good things, where what you'll do at the end of each night, and this would literally be looking at just before you're getting ready to go to bed, have your journal or pages next to you, you write down the 3 good things, and then you're literally going to be going to sleep. The focus on this is to look at just the previous 24 hours of what happened that was good. These could be small things that happened, maybe in a short conversation you had with somebody at work or at home. It could have been a stressful day and you were driving home and you put a song on that you love and that you find inspirational, and that as a result that shifted your perception and that made the drive home less stressful. It could be a project that you've been working on, and on that particular day there was a breakthrough through one of the meetings that you had, and as a result you got more momentum than you'd even hoped would have happened that day. So the good things can be very small things that occurred, or very big things that are breakthroughs. But again, they need to have occurred in that previous 24-hour period. Now, in doing this for 14 days, what you'll see in the article written by Seligman on interventions in optimism is that the sustained impact of doing this on our optimism tends to last at least 6 months, what they found in the research. And the longer you do this 3 good things activity, the bigger the impact it has on your optimism and your growth. So again, just like the gratitude visit and the gratitude paper, I will not be asking you to submit the summary of your 3 good things. Whatever you write in your journal is yours and yours to keep, and it's your information. At the end of week 8, I'm going to be asking you to analyze the 3 good things. If you do this more than 14 days, you'll have even more information. And when we get closer to the due date of this assignment, I will give examples of what you need to do and how you need to analyze these 3 good things in order to complete the paper that's due at the end of week 8. Again, the reason for me sharing this now is I'd like you to begin doing that assignment and writing 3 good things as soon as you can. And by the way, I've done this many times. Each time I assign this to my students, I also do it myself. And I've found that it takes about 2 minutes to write down 3 good things. They can literally just be bullet points of what happened that made that day have 3 good elements in it for you, however you define that. So that'll be due again at the end of week 8. And then the final focus is on, from the Seligman article in Interventions in Optimism, using your strengths in a new way. And that will be what you're looking to do for part of your paper, as well as your final individual development plan